What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scales 13. In today's video, we're going to be giving Panther here a little bit of an upgrade. Now, Panther is an Indonesian blue tongue skink, Teligua gigas gigas. This particular species of blue tongue skink requires high humidity. So with winter approaching, I wanted to give Panther a little bit of an upgrade, and I wanted to make sure the humidity in his enclosure was more stable. I also wanted to upgrade his lighting as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. This is going to be Panther's enclosure remodel. What's up, Panther? You know what, bud? I can't wait to get you in that big PVC enclosure. You know, but even though you're in this 40 breeder, I feel like we can do a little better. It's looking kind of shabby right now. We got a little bit of tin foil on top to hold some humidity. But even still, even that's looking a little shabby. And you know what? I think it's time to change a few things. Now this is what I call a nice enclosure. So guys, I've been meaning to make a few changes to my Blue Tongue Skinks enclosure for quite a while now. And I finally got a chance to really sit down, map everything out, and just see what I could possibly do to make his enclosure better. Now granted, like I've said before, in the future my Blue Tongue Skink will be in a much larger enclosure, and it's going to be a well-built PVC enclosure. But I wanted to make the best out of what I had at the moment, and honestly I think I've really done so with the materials that I've used. So let's start off with what I did first. As previously mentioned before, guys, I wanted to up the humidity a little bit with the winter months coming in. So what I did was, instead of using plain cypress mulch, what I decided to do was take some good old-fashioned terrarium moss and some sphagnum moss and mix that into the cypress mulch I already had. The combined moisture of the various mosses along with the cypress mulch is going to help the substrate hold humidity longer for our Blue Tongue Skink, and it's going to hold that moisture not only on the surface but also within the deeper levels a little better. It gives it a very woodsy, foresty look, which is what I was looking for when I was revamping this enclosure. I wanted to have this animal really feel like he was in the tropical rainforest or in the area where it comes from in Indonesia, so that we would really feel like it's in the tropics and the ground has a much more natural look to it. Another thing that I added to this enclosure is some new decor. So just like I do with all of my animals, I like to switch out all the different plants that I use, especially if I have plastic plants, because all they need is a good cleaning and then you can reuse them over and over again. So what I decided to do was add some new plants, so that way this animal will have some new scents and some new little pieces of decoration to explore and check out. So that way I could add some enrichment to the enclosure for my Blue Tongue Skink, just so he doesn't get lethargic and bored. And I think I've really succeeded with that. So the most obvious feature that I've added to the enclosure is the background. So I wanted to pick a nice background that had a lot of foliage that would really add to the look of the enclosure. Adding backgrounds on the back and the sides of your enclosure can actually make an animal feel more secure, rather than feeling like they're exposed with the glass all the way around the enclosure and feeling like everything can see them. Hopefully this will make my Blue Tongue Skink feel more secure within the enclosure and he won't feel as scared. But it also makes the enclosure look really beautiful. And that's what I wanted. I wanted an enclosure that was not only pleasing to the eye and more aesthetically pleasing for me, but also something that would make my Blue Tongue Skink more comfortable in his current home. Another thing I've done with this enclosure to really bump up the humidity along with the new substrate mixture is to add foil tape. What I did was I used the foil tape on the top of my screen top, and I also added fall tape on the bottom layer as well, just so that way the humidity is really locked in. So it made a really good barrier, and I left a space up here on the top for the new UV fixture that I just added. This fixture is 24 inches long with a 22-inch bulb. This UVB bulb is actually the exact same bulb that I use for my Acumine or Thunder. The reason I chose this bulb is because even though the 40 breeder isn't as tall as the 4x2x2 that I have my Acumine in currently, remember, this enclosure still has a screen top, and a screen top is still going to filter out a good portion of the UVB. So just to make sure that I was doing the right thing, I looked at the chart on Arcadia's website for the bulbs that they use. The thing about the chart is, it actually took into consideration whether or not you're using a screen top for your enclosure, which the light would have to shine through, along with the height of your enclosure as well. And it actually came about that this was the correct bulb to use for my Blue Tongue Skink. So it's really awesome because now they have the same bulb. So whenever these guys need a UVB replacement, I can just order a few bulbs of the same type, and then we won't have any problems in the future. I really like that I was able to leave some space directly in the middle for the UVB lamp because it gives a really nice overall look, but having that bulb directly in the middle versus just having one of those little coil UVB bulbs in the corner, it really allows my Blue Tongue Skink to get UVB throughout the entire enclosure versus just one spot in the enclosure. Also, since this is a high output bulb, it's going to penetrate deeper through that screen top at the top of the enclosure. This guy's going to get the proper UVB that he needs to maintain strong bones and have an overall healthy lizard. Panther's enclosure is not a bioactive enclosure. He does have springtails in his substrate, which with proper misting and adding moisture to the cypress mulch, I never really had an issue with keeping those guys alive in here. But since I added the mulch, I think that'll actually help the springtails actually keep a higher population since there's more organic material in here that will break down for them to feed on. So overall, theoretically, I believe that'll actually help the cleanup crew maintain a nice population so that way they can break down any waste or any dead skin from Panther either shedding or producing any waste from the food that he's eating. And of course, I have no idea what this animal's thinking, but just by observing Panther and just looking at the way that he slowly creeps through the enclosure, I think he may be feeling right at home here. I think adding the background where he feels more secure and has something solid behind him is really giving him some more security. Granted, I have no idea what the animal's thinking, like I said before, but at the same time, I really think that this made a really good improvement in his husbandry. One thing I might do in the future is get more of that background material to cover the sides of the enclosure as well. That way, this little guy will feel secure all the way around in his enclosure. One thing I had to do that really wasn't that big of a deal. So a lot of times these pieces of slate that I have in Panther's enclosure tend to get buried just from him digging and rooting through the substrate. So what I did was I pulled all of them out and just put them right on top of the substrate, just so that way they can do their job of absorbing that heat from his basking bowl, just so that way he'll have a nice hot place to sit there and bask and digest his food. What's up, bud? Hey. Hungry, man? Huh? You hungry? Yeah.